I welcome everyone to another episode of season 4 of the Hempy Talks. It's going to be another interesting Hempy story. This time I'm having here with me Paul Benheim from the US, who we are going to discuss a little bit about hemp plastic. So let's dive in. And thank you for being here, Paul.
It's very wonderful to be here with you, Beatrix, and everyone, all your listeners.
Thank you. And hemp plastic is one of the biggest questions probably because plastic is one of the biggest concerns many people have. So there are a couple of plastic solutions out there, but hemp plastic is still on its way to grow. How could it change possibly the industry? And that will be the biggest question, probably many people would think. But before asking you that, let me just ask you, how did you get involved and how did you get to know about industrial hemp and how did hemp plastic come to life?
Sure, good questions, Beatrix. To start with, I got involved with industrial hemp in the 1990s. And when I was actually in Asia, and I was living in a traditional indigenous village, and I wondered why people were so healthy living in the conditions that they were. And I discovered that it was because they were eating essential fatty acids. In a very long story short, that led me to recognizing that hemp seed, which is a seed from the hemp plant, contains high amounts of these essential fatty acids, which then led me to going and setting up the entire hemp foods industry because it never existed. So I basically went and sourced hemp seeds from Hungarian farmers and helped take that to create some mainstream products in the UK. And then I was headhunted to come to, and that was in the UK, United Kingdom. I was headhunted to come to Australia in 1999 after that to do a similar project here. And it was through that journey and that transition time in the late 90s where, again, traveling back in Asia, where I did a lot of studying in my younger years, I discovered that the pristine environments that these people lived in were not as pristine as I once believed when the locals took me for a hike above mountains in the Himalayas to show me where they dumped all their plastic waste, which when I noticed was above stream to their villages, I realized that plastic waste was a problem globally. And that's when I chose to do something about that. I never thought that was possible until, again, hiking in more mountains in northwest Wales. I was speaking with a friend who actually worked at a biocomposite unit, working with other biocompatible materials in plastics. And they offered me the ability and the opportunity to create the first blend of hemp and plastics since Henry Ford had ever given anybody the idea some decades before. You may have seen a picture of Henry Ford yielding an axe against a car and it bouncing off without causing any problems to that material, and that material being made of plant-based fibers. So he was my inspiration in plastics, and that led me to doing these studies in Northwest Wales, which then led me to more groups in Germany and around Europe, where I invested the funds from the hemp foods industry that I had created to create the first hemp plastic compounds, have evolved over the last decades through different types of materials, including 100% hemp materials as strong as steel, materials that can be injection molded, but are higher priced, but ultimately to what we now have today at the Hemp Plastic Company.
That's wonderful. And anybody who doesn't know Paul, just check out, I would say, social media, because I could notice that you're a big time traveler and you really travel a lot and get to know people in the hemp industry like all the time. It's kind of a daily routine for you. So this can also bring in lots of growth to the hemp plastic company, which I'm very happy about. I want to ask now the big question about the plastic as such. Usually when people say it's plant-based plastic, that would be like 20% of the natural fiber and the 80% would be non-natural fiber. So when it comes to the biodegradable part of it, or the afterlife of it, because we are all thinking cradle to cradle, that becomes a big question. So how did Hemp Plastic Company, solve this challenge?
Mhm. Well, it is a challenge, and the main challenge is that there are so many uses for plastics. Ultimately, that's the pro. Let's start with the problem and define the problem first. And the problem is that humans use plastics, which take millions of years to create products that we use from anywhere between once to a few times, a few hundred times maybe, and everything in between. And that's all different types of plastics. Plastics come from fossil fuels generally, which are non-renewable resources, except through recycling processes, which also have their limited abilities. Through my career, I've looked at different options along that scale. And when I first got involved and I saw that waste, as I explained earlier, in the mountains, I believed that the most environmentally friendly thing that I could do, or the most sustainable thing I could do, was create biodegradable, bio-based products. I have since evolved my understanding of the plastics needs of humanity today, which is the reality that we live in, understanding where we could go to, and I work with the current transitional products. Transitional products means products that work in exactly the same way as their regular fossil fuel alternatives do today, but are more sustainable. Now, are they 100% more sustainable, or are they 20% in the example that you use more sustainable? That is the question. And I think any step towards being 100% sustainable is wonderful. In my work in this field in general, I have learned that my idealism of being 100% sustainable is unlikely for humans to be on this planet in general, in all forms of life. So it becomes well, okay, can we improve where we are, and can we take the most efficient steps forward? To do that, we discovered the balance, and the balance being the balance of bio-based materials and some fossil fuels. And the reason for that is it makes the physical performance the same or better. It makes the environmental performance significantly better, and we've confirmed that through independent life cycle analysis of our product that shows that for every ton of hemp used in comparison with the regular materials, sorry, every ton of hemp plastics to regular fossil fuels, whether that's mixing or comparing polypropylene with hemp polypropylene, or polyethylene with hemp polyethylene blends, and even hemp PLA blends with pure PLA blends. And surprisingly enough, actually adding hemp to PLA blends makes it significantly more sustainable. And we got those numbers showing that we make 40 to 60% difference in the carbon sequestration of those products. And which is why we also focus on long life materials. We have not focused our company's efforts on making single-use plastics. And still, I recognize that humans still have some use for single-use plastics, which, at least to the places I travel to in the world, are being reduced significantly by government legislation, which is really helping. So as well as the physical performance and the environmental performance of 40 to 60% better, just by using 20% or 25% hemp, we also need to have the processing performance, which means that in regular places where plastic products are made, usually an injection molder, the time it takes from you to put in a raw material to getting products put out per hour is the same as regular fossil fuels. So we've had to match that too. We've also had to match closest as possible to the economic performance and stability of our products. So we have spent many years and millions of dollars in ensuring that we have created the most cost-effective way to use hemp and regular plastics. And last but not least, we've looked at scalability and the ability to scale our product, because making a product in the lab, or at least, when we were looking at that with 100% hemp materials, was great. Even on a very small scale was wonderful and worked fine. But to scale it up to many hundreds and thousands and millions of tons, which is what we're working towards and working on right now requires the ability to scale. And we have managed that now with the hemp plastic company's needs, and which is why we're now very able and are starting to ship rail car amounts of our materials. And just to be clear, our materials are the raw plastic pellets, which is the blends of hemp and regular fossil fuels. Does that answer your question?
Well, partially it does, and thank you so much for that. I'm thinking that one of the words that you mentioned, scalability, which is really the key to any sustainable company to grow, to any solution to grow. And one of the approaches that sustainable companies use to because they are sustainable. And they want to reduce their carbon footprint, they want to reduce the cost, they want to support the local economies, is to develop licenses, like for people to produce and manufacture locally. Is it how you envision the growth for Hemp Plastic Company, or is it a different way that you are planning to use to grow?
That's another great question. Thank you, Beatrix. In general, the way I see companies work in this industry is that they will go into another country, they will go and hire some local staff, and they will bring the money in to set that up, but they'd also take the money out of the country. And at the Hemp Plastic Company, we don't believe that's the most sustainable solution. And the model that you just described is more sustainable, where we are currently in conversations in many countries, many continents, in fact, around the world, where our discussion is in relating to bringing all of our patents and know-how and understanding of the supply chain to produce hemp plastic in the cheapest way possible, because that's what we've spent our millions of dollars and many years of research and development on founding. And we've only just become a commercialized company, just to be clear, in the USA, where we buy locally, we sell locally. Our goal, because this is a commodity product, is not to export from the US as well, but our goal is, as you described, to go and find a local partner in the local country who will own the company predominantly. We may take a small stake in that company, but we will be a minority shareholder, but we will license out all of our know-how and everything to empower people to basically jumpstart 10 years of research and millions of dollars of mistakes in how not to create a sustainable material, because we need to leverage and work together, I believe. So our goal is to take this throughout the world as quickly as possible, and which leads to another comment you made earlier, which was, how big will this be for the industry? I think for the hemp industry, this will use more biomass or biomaterials than any other parts of the hemp industry potentially, except or close to the amount used for building in the future. And I think these two industries will use the predominant amount of industrial hemp around the world. Of course, there are many other uses for this amazing plant, but I think these have the ability to grow and scale very quickly.
Right. And that's an approach that makes also like collaborations and alignment in values possible for you and companies following a similar strategy, which is very commendable. A last question I would ask, and that would probably go back to something I mentioned earlier, that there is a huge amount of plastic waste, and as you rightly mentioned, it's all different kind of chemical formula. And that's why some plastic companies would go into recycling certain type of plastic into furniture, for example, or clothes or some other things, but they wouldn't recycle some other type of plastic. And would you say that the materials you are using, it's recycled plastic, or it's not?
Well, so I guess two parts to that question. One is the raw materials for the products that we make today are dependent on our customers' formulation or our customers' requirements. We do offer, and we have made hemp and recycled polypropylene, for example, or hemp and recycled polyethylene. We have also made hemp and ocean waste plastics as well. So, and you can do any blend that you like, and ultimately it's up to the customer and consumer. And we are consumer led, so we do what our customers want first, offering them at the minimum a 25% hemp content generally. So that's our minimum, requirements to work with us, and the rest is up to the customer, and we will offer them the ability. In terms of whether our material is recyclable, which is the other side of the question, is the short answer is yes, it is recyclable. The slightly longer and more complicated answer is that recycling facilities for plastics vary significantly globally, which means there is no global standard for how things are recycled, whether they are recycled or not. So whether all our materials, like anyone else's materials, is recycled or is composted, it depends on, again, the formulation, the product made, and the location of that product.
Thank you. Definitely lots of questions to think about to anyone wanting to work with recycling. And I'm taking many pauses here because really that's the biggest question. Plastic is all over the globe, and there is already an overproduction, like too much all over. Like very soon we might be living in an ocean of plastic if we are not careful. So as you mentioned, it's consumer driven. So that means that all of us have equally a responsibility and a choice in this, and choosing it can make a difference. So if you are choosing to recycle plastic and use hemp, then you are actually helping to give a second life to that garbage out there, and also to use something that is cleaning the soil and healing the air and can be used in multiple ways. So the choice is ours, I can say, and this is something a very, very important reminder that can be taken away, as well as many other messages. So if you haven't heard about hemp plastic, I would encourage you to learn about it and get involved. Create your own hemp plastic factory in your country, and get in touch with Paul. He's active on all social media platforms, so that will be very easy for you. And thank you so much for being here, Paul.
Thank you, Beatrix. Thank you for sharing the word about hemp, important information.